All right, number 73, mediumship and how it changed my life. Um, I want to talk about, there's really two parts to this, and that would be on receiving messages from people when I'm being read, when I'm sitting for other mediums, and also giving messages to people as a medium. There goes my clock. I thought I'd timed that better. Not to get those dings in the background. Okay, so I'm going to start with the receiving, getting messages from people and how that's changed my perspective on things, because I sit for a lot of mediums to practice on. That's a normal part of my weekly life, and I've had to change my mind about some really significant things. Uh, Not only getting messages for people, connecting with people in spirit, but receiving information from people who connect with my family, some of whom I never knew because they're in great-grandparents' generation, or they died just before I was born, or that kind of thing. I used to believe that we only had relationships with people in spirit if we had a relationship with them here, and it turns out that's not true at all. Grandparents we didn't know, great-grandparents, they're very much aware of our lives. I don't know how many generations back that goes, but it's fascinating to me, and it's just sort of reiterates that no one's ever really alone. Really, the big deal for me, though, emotionally, is the insight I have gotten into the behaviors of some people that should have been nicer to me, blood relatives who I have no good memories of at all, for example. And one of those, just as an example, one of those, I knew, I had forgotten, but I knew because I heard decades ago that his parents had been murdered when he was a child. And and so I knew that about his past long before I was born. But what came through in a reading when somebody got him was that he had found them, that he was the person who found his parents, which is obvious. If I had ever stopped to think about it, I would have realized who else would have found them but him. But the shock of that, the horror of that, altered his life for the rest of his life, for the worse. And it really explains his lack of emotional availability to everyone, including me, and how the difficulties in our relationship had absolutely nothing to do with me, and a lot to do with that terrible, terrible experience that happened when he was like 11. So now when I think about him, I feel bad for him as opposed to being angry at him or feeling bad about him. So there's that. I've also had people, they're aware of what's going on in our lives, and they're so supportive of things. I recently was not, Stephen Sondheim is my all-time favorite composer, and Company is a musical he did. It's my all-time favorite musical. I was not cast in it recently, and that really bothered me because they wouldn't even let me read for the role. It was very annoying and frustrating. And multiple people came through who are musicians or actors, people I have in spirit, referencing that and how it's fine and just move on and it's okay and whatever. But the funniest one about that is somebody got my mother, and I forget who it was, but they said, I definitely have a woman. She feels parents' generation. Might be a mom, but I literally see this woman standing on a stage with her hands on her hips, pointing at you going, he's amazing, like really, but in a really defensive way. And this was the day after I found out I would not be allowed to read for the role that I wanted. So it was just very funny how they come through. It's nice to be without making any effort, right? Other than sitting, listening to someone practice on you. It's nice to be on the receiving end of that. We're never really alone. They still love us. They're still very much involved, or at least aware of or focused on our lives. I just think that's fascinating. And it's been really good for me emotionally, knowing for a fact that consciousness continues. I wish I could give that to other people as a comfort. I try to give that to other people when I'm doing readings. So, and that's the other thing, is giving readings to people, me connecting with people in spirit and giving readings to people that's really the part of mediumship that has completely changed my life for the better. I know, for example, and I've said this in other videos, that the happier I am, the better my readings go. And so I still do this. I will, before I do a reading, I'll quickly log in on to YouTube, for example, and I'll watch funny outtake videos. Anything that makes me laugh spontaneously. I'll listen to upbeat music, that kind of thing. I still do that because it makes my readings go better. But I used to do it only just before a reading. And then I clued in, and I was trying to be positive the day of a reading. If I knew I had a client, I'd try to be positive the whole day long, just turn my attention to happy thoughts, positive things. Now I do that all the time, and it's really made a huge difference in my life. I'm not burying my head in the sand. We live in a physical world. It has demands that can be tedious or unpleasant. There are bad people in the world. There are evil people in the world. There's a lot of very unhappy people in the world. So I'm dealing with reality, but I no longer dwell on the negative when it comes in. As soon as I can, I redirect my thoughts to something that feels good, something positive, something happy. And the reason, and so I've always known, or I've known for a long time, not always, I've known for a long time that that was a thing, that was a possibility to direct your thoughts to something happy. But it was more gratifying for me to be right, to correct a bigot, to point out how they were bigoted and why that was wrong. And that was gratifying in that way, those interactions where I liked being right. But I was still unhappy and in a negative emotion when having those interactions with people, for example, with bigots. And so now I don't engage, for the most part, with people like that, and I deliberately direct my thoughts to happy things, positive things, because my desire to be good at mediumship is greater than my desire to be right, for example, in those conversations with difficult people. So, so we live, I really believe, that's not always easy, right? If someone's a real jerk to you, or if some situation happens, it's not always easy necessarily to deliberately direct your thoughts to something positive. But I have to say, part of the way that I do that is, first of all, the motivation to be good at mediumship is really huge for me. But also, being here in this physical world is part of that. Is there is a range, there's a spectrum of people and a spectrum of experiences that run anywhere from annoying to outright evil, and that's just part of this world. And so what I've done is I just let them be part of this world. When I recognize something like that, I just go, oh, you're part of that, I'm not going to engage, or you're part of that, I'm not going to partake of that. And so I keep my interactions as brief as possible with the negative, and even thinking about them or thinking about those situations or people that are very negative, that's part of joining them, right, in that energy. So I try not to do that. So the results of being deliberately positive, and not the results of me being a medium, the results of me being deliberately positive because I want my mediumship to be better, are numerous, and that's really what's changed my life. I'm way less stressed out than I used to be. I sleep much better than I used to. I'm luckier. Literally luckier in a noticeable way. I think that's because I'm receiving impulses from people in spirit, certainly information, but like I feel much more often now, I'll feel nudged on the freeway, change lanes, get off here, that kind of thing. And either I get somewhere faster, or I avoid really bad traffic, or I outright avoid accidents. I get amazing parking, which may not sound like a big deal to you, but if you lived in Los Angeles, you'd understand what a big deal that is to get parking feet from where you want to be, as opposed to thousands of feet or several blocks away from where you want to be. I often get the last of something, the last baked good in a restaurant, the last item of clothing, the last available appointment for something. The timing has worked out really well for me for that. People skip me ahead in lines all the time. I don't know what that's about, but these are all things that I've noticed since being really deliberately positive. Life is generally easier. Things are just easier. There's a sense of fortunate well-being that I have that was not there previous to being so positive on purpose. So easier than it certainly was pre my mediumship days. So that's really, and it's because of mediumship, but that's really how I think my life has changed. It's been certainly for the better. I don't know of anyone, I've never heard of anyone saying their life has gotten worse since becoming a medium. I think it's either neutral or better. And if yours is not, I'm curious. I'd be curious to hear about that if you want to leave it in the comments. So that's what I have to say on this subject. Next week, I'm going to talk about how some of my readings as a medium, some of them go better than others. And I do mediumship the exact same way every time. So, I mean, I'm linking the same way every time. So why are some of them good and some of them are amazing? Like, why is that? I have thoughts about that. So that's what I'm going to do. If I didn't already say it, please like this video, comment on below, click the subscribe button. All those things help other people to see these videos. Thank you for watching this time, and see you next week. Thanks for watching.